Shalom, shalom. Yes, right, y'all. This is Yehonathan Dawit with you here, YahwehForChristians at gmail.com. I'm honored to be with you here on what they call July 5th, 2020. Talk about some things before I go into the bowls next week. Next week, we talk about the bowls, all 7 in one day. But there's some terms that I want to clarify before we go there. What they call Armageddon, which is better transliterated as Moghed, the G is silent, and Mareh versus Rawaw, and we're going to talk about the 4 beasts. So, first, Moghed. I was thinking, what is the formula that someone can use to get variant different groups together? What kind of formula can you use to get all kinds of people together? Well, you can cause a united problem. You see, you can hate your neighbor all you want. You tired of him driving on your grass, not cutting his grass on time, killing your tomatoes, making too much noise when he parties. But let an 18-inch snowstorm come, everybody in the neighborhood is kumbaya. Everybody comes together. Why? Because they have a common problem. They have a common enemy. They all come together to unite the common problem, a common enemy. They don't have problems with each other now because they all have a purpose and they all come to it together. Now the anti-Messiah uses this same formula. He is going to blame all the world's troubles to his peace. Remember, he enforced a covenant at that 3.5 year period. He didn't make the covenant, he enforced it, and that was 3.5 years of peace before then. Now we get the 6th seal, this great worldwide earthquake, and all hell breaks loose. So he wants to find someone to blame for that. So he puts it on us, he puts it on Israel, and who are the non-compliant ones to his system of tagging everybody. Because after this earthquake, if you remember, all of your technology is knocked out. How are you going to keep track of people? How are you going to know who's moving and where populations are going to? You need to have a system, and you don't have electronics. It's not brought back up yet. Now, eventually, they do get a lot of it back, especially not over here in the north and west, but in the east and the south, they get it back. But in the meantime, you got large groups of people moving, and you can't keep track of them. And they're already trying this right now. Of course, we all know that. So, of course, he wants to do this with his blood. It's a blood way of tagging people. Now, so the world's population is in uproar after the 6th seal, and technology has gone for 3.5 years. So one of the things I was thinking about was this Philadelphia. Now we know Philadelphia, that quote unquote church is the 144,000 and his companions, which are the Rechabites. Israel, everyone likes to claim being in that church. Everybody wants to be, because that's the church that they didn't get admonished, they were praised, and didn't get any bad tags on them. So I thought about it. How can I get Israel to understand that they are not the 144,000? They are not the church, quote unquote, of Philadelphia. Here's how we can do that. Lose your cell phone. Let's say Monday, everything, your normal life goes on as daily routine. Tuesday, you lost your cell phone. You don't know where it is. Your life will be totally different. You will not go through your day on Tuesday the way you went through your day on Monday when you had your cell phone, and on Tuesday you don't have it. What if you lose your driver's license? You will not go through your life on Tuesday like you did on Monday. What if you just lose all your keys on Tuesday? You will not go through your routine life on Tuesday like you did on Monday. You cannot do it. These items are too important to your daily life. What if you lose your job, your credit card? What if unfortunately you lose your wife through an accident or death or divorce? Our lives, all of us, we are enmeshed in this system. And you don't realize until you lose something that you don't even think about in your daily life. Something you don't even consider. If that's taken out of your routine life, your life is now altered greatly. Not having your cell phone or your laptop alters your life greatly, which means you are dependent on the system. We are enmeshed. I'm using my phone right now to record this. Right now, I'm using my phone. I'm also using my computer at my desk. We have lights. I have a job. You have a wife. All these things roots you and grounds you into this earth, which is why Yahweh has to do what he has to do, because this is serious. Now, so that right there will humble you to realize you're not the 144,000. First of all, they're virgins, so they don't have a wife. They're not watching me on this channel. They don't have cell phones. They don't have a social security number. You cannot, people talk about the mark of the beast and don't know what it is. We're going to talk about that in future episodes. Exactly what it is. From the scriptures. Exactly. Here is wisdom. People talk about the mark of the beast, not knowing what it is, but you cannot buy a home or sell a home without having a social security number. Yet they've had that for what, 100 years? We are enmeshed in this system more than we realize it, so we need to humble ourselves and stop thinking we're more than what we are. Get out of this system, get out of Babylon, and see how inconvenienced you are. We don't even like to keep the Feast of Tabernacles without bringing all these things with us when we tabernacle. We come to our tabernacle with our technology, with Wi-Fi, with our phones, with our cameras, with everything. We bring it all with us, and we have air conditioning and everything in tabernacles. And it won't be in the real tabernacle for those 3.5 years we have to get to Zion. Now, about this word, I had to use some scholarship, go to the internet, because I was having a little bit of difficulty with this word Armageddon, because it's not quite right the way they're telling us. Go to the Englishman's Hebrew and Chaldee Concordance of the Old Testament, 3rd edition, volume 1, 1874. Okay, page 672. 4 letters, Mem Wa Ayin Dalet. Mem Wa Ayin Dalet is transliterated as Moghed. The Ayin sounds like a soft G. Moghed. Not Mageddon, Moghed. And Ha means the in Hebrew. So Ha Moghed. That's the proper transliteration of it. Now the term, it means like term, it means due, term, festival, or meeting. Now in Halak, I have a Hebrew Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament. It's a very expensive book, far better than Strong's. On page 558, it translates this word as multitude, but it has a question mark. Multitude, place of assembly. And the only reference of this word, ha-mohed, the only inference is in Isaiah 14:31. Isaiah 14:31. Now, just like the book of Revelations is written in tesseract form, this passage, go to verses 28 to 32 of Isaiah 14, and it's written like a tesseract. It's not sequentially in order. And it talks about the king Ahaz who died, who was a vassal of Assyria, 720 years BC. Okay? 720 BC. He's prophesying. And he talks about this place of meeting. And it's not is not Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog happens at the end of the 1,000-year millennial kingdom. Okay, Gog and Magog happens at the end. That's after the two sticks are together. This is before that. This is the 200 million man army. And this is so to actually more accurately interpret quote unquote Armageddon is in the due meeting time of the great assembly. In the due meeting time of the great assembly. Now, the only time this word Armageddon is in the Bible is in Revelation 16:16. Now, I like to call this area the land of Lot. Now, all your eschatologists, they tell you that the hiding place of the remnant is Basra. And it could be Basra. Another popular destination is Petra. They like to say in Petra. But there's another area down there called Selah. Selah. I believe it's in Selah. But Yahweh's remnant is hidden down there in what I call the land of Lot. Why is it the land of Lot? Because that is his area. But because Lot, the meaning of Lot's name means veil. You know, like the bride wears a veil. Yahweh protects his bride. Remember, we are from the north. We're going to Zion. Yehuda goes up to Sinai. And Yahweh hides his bride behind a veil. Just like when you got married, your wife came in the aisle with a veil on. That's what Lot's name means. So I believe they're hiding in Selah. We don't exactly know, and more importantly, Shaitan doesn't know. But he will seek Yahweh's chosen out when he flatters the 7 kings to go down and do so. The 200 million man army will be coming down there in that area to look for Yahweh's people. So that clears up the word Moghed. Now, how about Matthew 24? In Matthew 24, we have two words, Mareh versus Rawaw. Now, they mean appearing and coming. Appearing and coming, basically. These words are confusing to eschatologists, and they confuse us. And that's how they come up with the rapture and secret rapture and all these types of things. But there is no secret rapture. Mareh is Hebrew number 4758. It means viewing, act of seeing, appearance, vision, beauty, visage. The Greek corollary to Mareh is near presence. That means near, close presence. Rawaw is similar, but not the same. That's why they're two different words. It's Hebrew number 7200. Literally or figuratively to see something, consider, discern, to be near, present, or to show. The corollary Greek word is 2064. It means company, bring, or grow. Okay? The King James Version uses coming for both of these words. 8 times in Matthew 24 alone. But this one word cannot mean the same thing for all 8 of those times. It's confusing and it's misleading. In Matthew 24, the disciples asked Yahweh Shua a very important question, a very loaded question. What will be the sign of your Mareh and the end of the age? That started Yahweh Shua into his eschatological speech. It goes on for several chapters. Now, but he did answer the question very pointedly in verse 27. He says, for as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the Son of Man Mareh be to them. To them. His Mareh. In verse 37, he talks about the days of Noah. His Mareh, the Son of Man, will come to them. In verse 39, as the flood came, so also will your Mareh be, the Son of Man be, to you, to the Hebrews. So he uses the word Mareh in his appearing to them. In Matthew 24:30, then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all tribes. Here's the difference. All the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man, Rawaw. Okay? On the clouds of heaven with power and great kabod. That's a different word. The King James Version does not change the word for coming. And so Rawaw is seen by all the tribes, actually all the peoples, and then you have this cloud coming. In verse 48 of Matthew 24, he uses the same word, Rawaw. Matthew 16:28 also uses the word Rawaw. So knowing the difference in Yahweh Shua's manifestations, knowing the difference in all these manifestations clears up an understanding of his appearing and this notion of a rapture, a secret rapture. There is no secret rapture. The testimony of Yahweh Shua is the spirit of prophecy. Rawaw happens at the end of the millennial kingdom before the judgment. And it compares to Shahatz Rahim. Remember we talked about Shahatz Rahim. Those are the three silver trumpets. Trumpets 5, 6, and 7. Those are the three silver trumpets that are blown. And the Hebrew word is Shahatz Rahim. The first 4 trumpets were blown with the horns from the original sacrifice that Yahweh had on those 2 rams that he sacrificed for Adam and Eve and clothed them with their garments. The Malachim blew from those 4 horns, and only those who had an ear to hear heard those. Only those who had their hearts and minds right to receive Yahweh Shua in these last days. They're the only ones that heard those horns. So there's a parallel there. There's a comparison with the seeing and the hearing. Okay, there's a comparison. There's a comparison here. Rawaw is like the Hatshatz Rahim. Those are silver trumpets. Everyone can see and everyone can hear Rawaw and the silver trumpets. Mareh is what happens before the battle of Armageddon, and it compares to the shofarim. Only those of Yahweh's covenant, only those who agree to it and are ready to hear him and receive him, they're the ones who Mareh and who hear the shofar. So you have a parallel between seeing and hearing with these 4 words. Mareh and Rawaw, Hashatz Rahim, and Shofarim. Okay, there's a parallel there. Now this I've been talking about for over 3 years, looking for the clouds, study the clouds, because Yahweh Shua is going to come in on a cloud, coming from the west to the east. All right, well, from the east to the west, and that's the opposite way that the clouds come right now. Clouds go from the west to the east. Yahweh Shua is going to go from the east to the west, and it's going to be a small cloud at first. You must pay attention. Don't be embarrassed by your half-brothers, the Ishmaelites. Remember, they were the ones that were watching for the star of Yahweh Shua, for the star of the Messiah. And they're the ones that came in and said, hey, y'all don't know? The Messiah is here. We watched his star. What was Israel doing? How come we didn't know? Maybe we were too busy on social media. Maybe we were too busy texting and Facebooking. I don't know. But we were not watching the stars. And today, we should be watching for the cloud coming from the east. Watching for the cloud. Stop too busy looking down at things that don't matter. Look up. Your redemption comes from up top. Your redemption does not come from looking down. Shaitan comes from looking down. Remember, the beast coming out of the abyss. So, Philadelphia. I hope I got you to understand and humbled us enough not to try to say that we're something we are not. When we're using all the comforts, creature comforts, and technologies of this worldly beastly system that we are in today. If we're doing that, we are not of Yehuda. We are not of the 144,000. We're not the so-called Church of Philadelphia. So Yahweh Shua Mareh to them first. He Mareh to them first. He comes to them first at Sinai. They have a 6-month engagement. It's cut short because the attack is coming from the north. The attack of the 200-man army and their companions. So instead of having a year off, which is the law of warfare, a man who has a new bride is not supposed to go out to fight for a year. Yahweh was going to have to cut off his moment with with Yehuda 6 months because the battle's coming. He has to protect his bride. So, he Mareh Yehuda first, then later he Marehs Laodicea. Laodicea is represented, Israel is represented by Laodicea. This whole series I'm doing now started with the 7 so-called churches. Sheba HaKolim. The Sheba HaKolim, the 7th one was the worst one. That was Laodicea. That's Israel, that is us. So he appears to us last. But Laodicea is purged, coming under the rod. Yahweh says, I will rule over you. You will pass under the rod, which is his son. Yahweh Shua is the rod, his son. We'll pass under the rod, and then we'll have 10 intense days of persecution, where we will be purged of all of our leaven, and then we will be purged into Smyrna. Yahweh will accept Smyrna. He will not accept Laodicea. So then we get purged into Smyrna. That is still a great number. A speckled bird of all kinds of peoples. Get off of this false argument of black versus white. There is no black versus white. Yahweh Shua is receiving all of these guests to his wedding, all of them speckled bird. All kinds of people. Remember, he went out to the highways and byways and pulled them in. Remember that. So, scriptures to back that up. Deuteronomy 30:6, Jeremiah 4:4, and Romans 2:28. So, what about these 4 beasts? Okay, what about these 4 beasts? The 4 beasts, now we all grew up knowing the Sunday school narrative of the 4 beasts of Daniel. Okay? The Sunday school narrative is that the lion equals Babylon, the Babylonian Empire. The bear equals the Medo-Persian Empire. And the leopard equals the Greek Empire. That 4th beast, we are told, is the Roman Empire. Okay. Now, this is what Daniel was told also, but he knows that's a superficial interpretation, which is why he didn't even write that part in the Hebrew. And I'll go into that also later. But all of Daniel was not written in Hebrew. It was coded in Aramaic also, because he knew that this was a deeper meaning to all this. Now, and he knows that because the Malach told him in Daniel 12:4 and 9 that it was sealed until the end times. Sealed from who? Israel, which is why he didn't write it in Hebrew for Israel. It was sealed from us. Daniel 7:15-27, the interpretation is disguised for a deeper meaning. What is that deeper meaning? The deeper meaning is the arising of the 4 horns, the 4 forms of Israel. That is surprising, yes. The deeper meaning of this Daniel 7 beast, and actually in Daniel 8 beast, and Daniel 2 Nebuchadnezzar, and the beast of the Revelations, we'll tie that all again in the future, is that all of this is Israel, 4 forms of Israel. Daniel 7:2-3. I saw in my vision by night, and look, the 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The great sea. I'm looking out my window here, and I'm thinking, why don't we see what's right before us? The great sea. We missed it, went over our head. Exodus 30:18-21 and 1 Kings 7:23-26. It tells you exactly what the Great Sea is. It is Hebrew number 3220, Yam. To roar, a sea, noisy, large body of water, or an artificial basin. Locally, it will mean the west or the south. Now, the west and south is euphemism words for Yisrael and Judah. Jerusalem and Judah is the euphemistic of west and south. Now, what does the Cohen see when he comes into when the Cohen comes into the bed of Yah? When he comes into the temple, what does he see? Right before him, the huge altar with the four horns representing the original sacrifice, raised from the ground, so you can put the fire on it, under it. The blood drains down into the ground. That's what the Kohen sees first, the priest. After the altar, what is there? The Great Sea. The Great Sea, Yisrael. The sea is behind the altar. This big bronze basin being held up by 12 bulls facing 3 in each 4 directions of the earth. All throughout the Bible, Daniel Revelations tells you repeatedly over and over again that the world is straight and flat with the number 4. All throughout. So the Great Sea is right behind the altar before you go to the quote-unquote holy place and then the most holy place. You have the altar, the Great Sea, and then the holy and most holy places. So this altar is for forgiveness of sins. The blood is drained and goes to Yahweh. The sea is propitiation of sins. When a priest is performing the sacrificial rituals, it's a very bloody mess. Blood is splattered over his clothing, his hands, everywhere. It's probably in his face and his hair. It's all over the place. Blood is all over the place. It's a bloody procedure. It's a bloody procedure. So he cannot just go into the holy place looking like that. There must be a propitiation, a cleansing of this evidence of guilt. Blood on your hands is evidence of guilt. You don't go to the holy place, go to Yahweh with blood on your hands, validating that you're guilty. You have to come in clean so you won't be killed. The Kohen has to go in clean or he'll be killed. So there's no blood on the hands, there's no blood on his clothes. He's cleaned with this sea. The sea, okay, the world's lost. When you go into, we're going to talk about next week, we're going to talk about the 7 bowls and what happens in the 7 bowls. But one of the things that happens during these 7 bowls is that the wicked have nothing to drink but blood. There's nothing for their thirst but blood. And since they're bloodthirsty, that's what they get. So we find that the world's lost and nothing but blood, but those who love Yahweh seek the water. The bloodthirsty from the beginning, from Abel until now, until the time, until they're no longer to kill, they've always killed. They've always been bloodthirsty. They've always murdered untold billions of souls. So they get the blood, and yet we have blood in us. And that's where another confusion comes from, okay? We were not created with blood. Yahweh created us from the dust of the earth. What's in the earth? What's in the earth? You got zinc, iron, magnesium, whatever. All the elements and all the nutrients of the soil is what's nickel, even some gold, calcium. All these things are in rich soil. All these things are in our bodies. Where did the blood come from? There's no ingredient in the soil of blood. Let's go into that. Genesis 2:23. I'm going to back up what I said about we not being created with blood. These are scriptures that came off the top of my head. I did not do any deep research. Genesis 2:23. This is Adam speaking. When Adam met his bride, when he first met her, his eyes popped open, mouth agape. Wow, this is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. He not mentioned anything about no blood. Didn't mention. He knew that she came from his flesh and bones. That's where she came from him. He knew that. How about Ezekiel 37:6? This is Ezekiel talking about the valley of dry bone vision. Ezekiel 37:6. Yahweh made a great and exceeding army out of these very dry bones. How did he put them back together? 4 things: sinews, flesh, skin, and breath. Sinews, flesh, skin, and breath. Did Yahweh forget something? No blood. Luke 24:39. Yahweh Shua said, this is Yahweh Shua talking. He says in Luke 24:39, when he was trying to convince the disciples that he was not a spirit. He appeared to them and he said, I'm not a spirit. Handle me, touch me. Spirit has not flesh and bones as you see it. Flesh and bones. He knows what's in his body. The spirit does not have flesh and bones as you see it. He didn't mention blood. What about Shaul in 1 Corinthians 15:50? He says, flesh with blood cannot enter the kingdom. 1 Corinthians 15:50. Flesh with blood cannot enter to the kingdom. To me, this one scripture you write down, because this is like the crux of it. 1 Corinthians 15:50. Now, I know your King James may say and. It doesn't change anything. 1 apple and 2 apples. 1 apple and 1 apple is 2 apples. 1 apple with another apple is 2 apples. Man and wife is 2 people. Man with wife is 2 people. So and with are the same word. They mean the same thing. You're putting them together. Flesh together with blood will not enter into the kingdom. That's what he's telling the Corinthians. No one is going to be with Yahweh Shua in all the wonderful bliss throughout all eternity, living with him with blood in their bodies. That's what it tells you right here. It's not going to happen. Ezekiel 11:19. Remember, these are not in order. This is just some scriptures that I came up from my head. Ezekiel 11:19 says that Yahweh, this is Yahweh talking now, I will take the stony heart out of your body and give you a heart of flesh. A heart of flesh. That's what Yahweh's going to do. Did he forget something? Jasher 43:28. Jasher 43:28. This is Jacob talking. After his sons came back and they had their scheme and plan and lied to him, bring back their brother's coat with blood on it, and just despondent and heartbroken. Jacob says, Jacob, who's a prophet, who prophesied, he knew that his son had a greater meaning to his life. That's why he made the coat, that he was had a greater meaning to the whole world and bring all the peoples under Yahweh. Out of his loins came Ephraim. It came us. He is the Messiah for the north. Yehuda is Messiah for the south. And the north is the bountiful one. Jacob knew this, the great prophet. And he's seeing his son dead as he knew it. They told him he was dead. And what did he say? He said in Jasher 43:28, Yah formed you, Yusuf, with bones, flesh, and breath. Bones, flesh, and breath. Wow, this is very gut-wrenching. Very gut-wrenching. If you read the whole chapter of Jasher 43 is tearing to see how his heart was broken. That he saw that when he prophesied that his son would bring in all these people of various nations and colors and tongues, that he was dead and created with bones, flesh, and breath of Yahweh. So where did the blood come from? Let's talk about the water. See, the blood came from the tree of Rawaw. You call that the tree of good and evil. That's where the blood came from. Eve took from the tree of good and evil, coveting, being beguiled by Shaitan. And that's where the blood came from. The tree of life was water. That's why after they took off the forbidden fruit, they had to be guarded from going back and eating of the tree of life, the tree of eternal life, the tree of water. Because then they would have had the mixture of them both. They couldn't die because they had the water, and they had coveted blood in their bodies. So that's where the blood came from. Let's get scripture. John 7:38. Yahweh Shua says, believe me, and out of your heart will come living waters. Believe on me, and out of your heart will come living waters. Not just water, living waters. He was quoting Isaiah. In Isaiah 12:3, Isaiah prophesied, he says, draw water from the wells of salvation. When you go to a well, you draw out water. You don't draw out blood. And who is salvation? But Yahweh Shua. That's what Isaiah says in 12:3. That's what Yahshua was quoting from. Then in Revelation 21:6, Yahweh Shua again is quoting. He says, I am the fountain of water of life for all who thirst. Revelation 22:17, if you thirst, take water from me and have your life freely. Take water from me freely. He ain't going to charge you for this water. Eternal life from him freely. This is during the millennial kingdom. Revelations 14:2, Yahweh has a voice of many waters. Yahweh does not have a voice of much blood. Many waters, living waters. All these waters. Let's go ahead and read John 19:34. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water came out. Blood and water came out. Yahweh Shua is the tree of Tobin Ra that we coveted. Eve was beguiled and covered the fruit. You have two trees in the garden. You have the tree of life and the tree of Tobin Ra, good and evil, two separate sources. But this tree, the tree that represents Yahweh Shua, is like a vine and wraps around like a covenant agreement, inseparable, around Yahweh, the tree of waters. So Eve covets this tree, and coveting is a foundational sin of the Ten Commandments. Because if one covets, they will lie. If they lie, they will steal. If you're going to steal somebody's property and things, what keeps you from stealing his wife? Adultery. If you're going to do that, what keeps you from murdering the husband? Murder. If you're going to do that, what keeps you from dishonoring your own parents? You see how they build another? If you're doing this, if a man lives like this, a covetous life, every day is the same. He ain't going to keep the Sabbath. Every day is the same. And if you're not keeping the Sabbath, what goes next? You're a blasphemer. A man like this is a blasphemer. He's a blasphemer. And if he blasphemes, he's idolatrous. And if you're idolatrous, you're equating yourself with Yahweh. You're worshiping yourself. Coveting is equal to claiming yourself to be Yahweh. It's deep, Israel. It's deep. It's deep. And when you think about it, it's heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching how something seemingly innocent like coveting really takes you all the way to the top of trying to put yourself in the seat of Yahweh. So, Yahweh Shua is the only one that has a right to have the blood. It's his blood. And if you're going to have his blood, you must live sinlessly in it. You're not going to have blood in your bodies and then sin and just keep on living. If you're going to have blood, you must be sinless. And Yahweh Shua was sinless. He was sinless. And he gave up his body for us. He rose from the grave, bloody and mangled up and deformed the same way he went into the grave. And with his mangled up body, walking on mangled up feet and toes, and having mangled up wrists and hands, he folded that garment that covered his body as a man. Then he went out of the tomb to go to the place to offer himself as a wave offering with a mangled up body and a heave offering going into figure 8, and he offered himself, and the blood went back up to Yahweh. All the blood went back up to Yahweh. It went back up, and then he, losing the blood now, back to Yahweh, was bronze. He lost his ruddy color and had a bronze color, which is why the disciples didn't even recognize him. So inside of him was the breath, the water, flesh, and bones. This is deep. This is deep. This is why I study so much and fast and pray so much. This is deep. So, the great sea is the multitude of peoples from Ephraim. Yusuf produced Ephraim, who got the double blessing. Manasseh also got the blessing from Jacob, but Ephraim got the double blessing. And the blessing of bountifulness and richness. When you have that, Judah is diminished. But Judah had the kingly blessing and the priestly blessing. Judah is the kingly blessing and priestly blessing. Manasseh is the bountiful blessing. That's us. That's where we come from. Now, let's back this up. The 2017 Census Bureau said that the white population is aging and declining. For the first time ever, there are more minority children than white children in every age group. That means 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 17 years old. Minorities are the most populous of all children in every age group. First time ever. The Bureau also goes on to say that the first minority generation was born in 2007. And you wonder why your murder rates are going up. See, those statistics puts them in fear. It puts them in fear. You will not be able to sloganeer, vote, nor march your way out of this. Black Lives Matter and Black Pride and all that. You're not going to be able to do that to get out of this spilling of the blood of your fathers and sons and mothers and daughters in the streets of America. You will not be able to do that. Our numbers are insurmountable. The blessing on us is overwhelming. The numbers are insurmountable. Look at this. The census states that the U.S. projections for the time period of 2005 to 2015, the population will increase by 60% for Latinos and 56% for blacks. 56%. With all the black men that have been incarcerated, with all the black men that have been killed, with all the black men, with all the black women who are under Planned Parenthood, we're still increasing by 56%. How much higher would it be if they weren't doing all this? The anti-Messiah was born in 2019. That was last year, the year we called of our deliverance. The year of deliverance, 2019. From 2019, year of deliverance. That is the 17th generation, which is the final generation of this world. This is the generation that the Bureau is talking about. The 17th generation is now a generation full of minorities. And your anti-Messiah was born during that time, and guess what? His mother is an Ephraimite, and his father is an Edomite. That's right. The generation the 70th generation, the last generation, that this census is talking about, that has produced the anti-Messiah, mother Ephraimite, father an Edomite. This is deep. This is deep stuff. So, if Israel would realize that books like Daniel and Revelations was written for us, we would have more understanding of what's going on. We would have more understanding when we read the book of who it's talking about. We will understand more of what the people look like that it's talking about. Revelations 22, and realize this book, what you call Revelations, was written by Europeans for them. So they're going to marginalize the melatonin rich peoples and put themselves in the center. So they always put themselves, they paint themselves as the villain and the solution. They're the problem and the solution. They're both. They put themselves in everything. Revelation 22, 1 and 2. Yahweh Shua is the river of waters of life. Remember, the waters always connect to living waters and life. So the tree is for healing of the nations. Remember the tree of life, the leaves are for the healing of the nations if they accept it, if they take it, if they will. And they won't. I also taught Israel, in my second book specifically, about the ruddy heifer. The ruddy heifer healed the nation. Israel was not sick like the other nations because they had the ruddy heifer sacrifice. The ashes were burned. Yahweh says in Psalm 20, accept my burnt sacrifice. Yahweh Shua is the burnt sacrifice. And with running waters mixed with the running waters, it healed the nations. It healed the people. The ruddy heifer. Hebrew Israelites are not talking about the ruddy heifer nowhere, no how. I'm the only one I know that talk about the ruddy heifer. If you knew about the doctrine of the ruddy heifer, you will understand this about us not having blood originally and how he cleanses us. He is a cleansing propitiation of us. Blood covers our sins. The water washes it away. The ruddy heifer, Yahweh washes, cleanses us. You're not going to go to heaven with blood. You have to be cleansed. So the millennial kingdom is the point where those are either going to accept it or not accept it. The bloodthirsty will not accept it. Those who seek Yahweh will. Now, finally, we get to the four beasts. Now that we know that we are the people of the book, Daniel, Revelations, right now we're talking about, now we can understand about these four beasts. The lion. We all buy these hats and t-shirts and these mugs and all these kind of regalia about the Lion of Judah and all this stuff. Not realizing that you are bragging and beating your chest up about how you are the biggest pain in the butt to Yahweh. Look at the Animal Planet and all those animal shows, and you see that the favorite food of the lion is the bull. The favorite food. You don't see no bull happy when he sees a lion. He ain't just smiling happy. And then, one lion can't take down a bull. So he's got to go back and get his brothers. He got to get his homies. He got to get his friends to go and help to attack Yahweh. So stop bragging about being Yehuda. That means you are the worst. You are the pain in his side. You're the one, yet Yahweh shows in his love for us. His love for us, how he has sacrificed so much for us. We need to love Yahweh and stop beating our chest and bragging about how we are this and we are that and black pride and all this stuff. Stop it. Humble yourselves, Israel. And you're not Yehuda anyway, but if you are the worst one yet. Now this lion has eagle wings and it stands and it has a man's heart. And then when the lion, he's characterized by his strength, his agility and athleticism, and he has wings. Now we know in Exodus 9 and 4, Yahweh says, I bore you out on eagle's wings. So this lion was taken out of Mizraim on eagle's wings. But then he stands on both sides, realizing that this is Hebrew. So he's standing on both sides of the Jordan. He is straddling the Jordan. You have 2.5 tribes on one side and the other tribes on the other side. So he's straddling Jordan. And then he's given a man's heart. The man's heart is rebellious. Pumping that blood is rebellious. It made me think about Ecclesiastes 3:18. In Ecclesiastes 3:18, Shlomo says, I said in my heart concerning the condition of the sons of men, Yahweh test them, that they may see that they themselves are like animals. Guilty, Yahweh, and I plead forgiveness by the blood for forgiveness and by your water for cleansing of my sins. Yahweh has revealed himself to us. He revealed himself to us on the tree, the almond tree on the Mount of Olives. He revealed how much he loves us by going to the end of death, rising up on that third day, innocent. The blood goes back up to Yahweh. He revealed himself to us. And in doing that, he also reveals ourselves to us. We're but beasts with rebellious heart against him, in spite of all that he has done. The bear. Now the bear, of all these animals, you can clearly see that the bear is a brother. He's this big brown bear, got a brown bear, and he's walking with a bop. He's got a little bop. Remember, Jacob, after he fought with Yahweh Shua, he had his hip displaced. So for the rest of his life, Jacob, he walked with a bop. If he was all across from the field or the desert, all you have to do is see his silhouette. You don't have to see his face. When you saw Jacob, you know that was him by the way he walked. By the way he walked. And to this day, my Marine Corps drill sergeant hated my marching. Because with 100 men marching, they all march like this. Me, he could see me because I had a little bop in he could see my helmet, my hat going up and down. And he would call me out. Stop that Baltimore Diddy bopping, private. Or actually call me names. So this bear, he was raised up on one side. And actually he was on this side. He's bopping. And this represents the two kingdoms of Israel. Remember, Israel succeeded from Judah, and you had two whole nations. Even though the land was all continuous, you had two separate nations. This is just like if in the American Civil War, if the South had seceded from the North, you would have had one continuous landmass, but two different nations. Well, that's what happened here. You have Israel, which is a separate nation from Judah, even though the landmass is separate. And Israel was 10 tribes, and Yehuda was 2. So it was lopsided, it was big. And then the first king of Israel was Jeroboam. And Jeroboam was an Ephraimite. We just got finished talking about how Ephraim was the population of the nations. So that's why this bear is lopsided. Judah is smaller. So that's the smaller side. And the bear is raised up on his left side, which symbolizes going to the north. Going to the north. So Judah is diminished and stays in the south. Ephraim is promised prosperity. So stop your buying and selling and see how the world responds. Every day should be Juneteenth. Every day. We don't realize how much power we have in the dollars in our pockets. We could exert that power more by how we manage our monies. But they don't want you to do that. Look what they did to Black Wall Street. See, the world doesn't want you to be independent. It wants you to buy and sell in her. They don't want you to do it in her. And the buying and selling equates worship. It's not just buying. We were all inconvenienced when all the shops were closed down because of COVID. It shows you how we were not comfortable because we couldn't buy and sell as much. And when we could buy, some of the products weren't there. It shows you a form of worship. Wait and see what the world does after that earthquake when we stop buying and selling. So Ephraim is the big part of the bear. And remember, Moses said that we were obese, that we were wax fat. He called it Gesheron, We wax fat, and we were obese from all this buying and selling. Now, what about these 3 ribs? Now, that alone's got to tell you once again that this was a brother. What did y'all do at Leon's Pigpen? Leon's Pigpen made a lot of money on Green Mountain North Avenue. A lot of money on Green Mountain North Avenue was buying those ribs. Now, what were these 3 ribs? One of the first things that Jeroboam did when he succeeded from Judah, he was the first king of Judah, he was an Ephraimite, was that he kicked out all the priests of Levi. And who were the 3 heads of Levi? Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. There's your 3 ribs. Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Those are your 3 ribs. Arise and devour much flesh. This, again, clearly is Israel. That's the infighting of Israel and Judah, back and forth, civil war, and also towards all the way to the rise of the powers of the north when they come down to the Gold Coast, and they sold us out, we sold them out, and to slavery. We did get help from Ishmael, but we sold ourselves out to slavery, which is us devouring much flesh and really hurting ourselves. The second beast, the bear, is Israel. How about the leopard? Now, the leopard was easy. The leopard had 4 bird wings and 4 heads and was given dominion. Now, there's a king that we don't talk a lot about that was very powerful. That is Josiah. Josiah, I think, was the 4th most important king of Judah. Of course, David's number 1, then Shlomo, but then Hezekiah, for all he did. Remember, Hezekiah is the one that destroyed Nehushtan, and then that rod was able to grow into the tree of Yahweh Shua died on 1,000 years later. That's beautiful. So, but Josiah was probably the next most important king. And when he took the throne, you can read about Josiah in 2 Chronicles 34, 6 and 7, and 2 Kings 23, 19. Now, if you go to 2 Kings 23, 25, it talks about how he exerted his power outside the borders of Judah. Josiah took his authority up into Ephraim, up into Jerusalem. He exerted his authority over the whole kingdom, almost the whole kingdom. And this shows his power and his strength and his noteworthiness. And out of his kingdom after his passing was 4. These are the 4 heads. Those 4 heads are his sons, Jehoahaz, Eliakim, Jehoiakim, and Mattaniah. Now, the last 3 sons had their names changed, but those are the 4 heads. And where did the 4 wings come from? All 4 of them flew off. They were held in captivity, 2 in Babylon and 2 in Egypt. There's your 4 wings. This is beautiful. This is deep. This shows you that this prophecy is all about Israel. It's not about the United States. It's not about Europe. It's not about Russia. It's about Israel, who Yahweh has a covenant with. Now, the 4th beast. The 4th beast. Now, this beast is so ghastly, so bad, so demonstrous, he cannot be described as any kind of animal. He is a concoction, a mixture of stuff. He is a beast. There's nothing way to describe him in terms of an animal. Daniel saw him in the night visions. The night visions means in the last days. This beast, the other 3 have come and gone, and they will be affecting, play a small role in what's going on today. But this 4th beast is dead center. Okay? So, saw him in the night vision, end times, 10 horns, iron teeth, bronze nails. Just like in Nebuchadnezzar. And we will talk about Daniel 2, which is Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel 7, and also Daniel 8. In Daniel 8, Yahweh simplifies this vision with 2 animals, the ram and the goat. The ram and the goat. So Now, the 3 horns are 3 Hebrew divisions. Ishmael, Esau, which is the rising Messianic kingdom. You have so many Jews now who are accepting Jesus or the Messiah. They call him Yeshua. So you got Ishmael, you got Esau, you got what I call Keturah's kids. Not Bebe's kids, Keturah's kids. And they populated all of Africa. Remember, Abraham, after Sarah passed, he married again and married Keturah and had 6 children. So you got Ishmael, who was the handmaiden of Sarah, who's up northeast, and then you got Keturah, who's the southeast, who has all the children down south. So these are all different, various groups of ethnic peoples, okay? Now, you have the 7 horns, and they are the Sheba HaKalim. The 7 horns, this series I'm doing now, started with Sheba HaKalim, all right, the 7 churches. And the 7 horns are the 7 churches, really minus 1, because you have the 144,000, you have Philadelphia, which stayed in the south, and then I joined the other 6. So those are the 7 horns. Now this beast, and excuse me, I got kind of a cold, so I'm doing a lot of rubbing of my nose. I understand that. Is a mixture of Hebrew, Jewish, Christian, and Islamic mixture, and that is ghastly. That's a ghastly beast of stuff all mixed together in one pot. You got Hebrew, Jewish, and Christian, and Islam. And how does this single horn get them to unite? They all unite under one God. You can have any of these people talk about God and not offend one another. You can have the Jew talk to the Islam and both talk about God, but in their minds it's a different being. Christianity can talk with the Hebrews and both talk about God and have different minds and different mindsets of who they're talking about. So this is how they united. But so the beast initially makes the Christians oppress and persecute the other believers. I don't recommend a whole lot of books, but I do recommend, there is a book I do recommend. This. Okay? It's called The Myth of Persecution by Candida Moss. And hundreds of references. The Christians were never persecuted to any great extent. Never persecuted to any great extent. They were the persecutors. They were the oppressors. Christians were the oppressors. Get Candida Moss's book, The Myth of Persecution. Now, if you read Isaiah 7 and 6, it hurts. But it's all about in-family fighting. Remember the brown bear and in-family fighting, and we're fighting each other. This is civil war. This is Christianity, Catholicism, Protestantism, Puritanism, and evangelicalism, all fighting and being destroyed. Ishmael is manipulated with flatteries to destroy them. This is why Dawid says Yahweh will cut off all flattering lips. Because when you flatter someone, what you do is essentially you disarm them from critical analysis. So Ishmael is disarmed from analysis of why they should be attacking all these beliefs, all these faiths, and killing them, because they have been flattered by the Edomites. Edomites are not Jews. These are the Luciferians, okay, who are controlling everything. So Yahweh Shua is at Moghed to face off against Islam. Now, those are the 200 million man army. But guess what? Joining Islam is India, China, Russia, all these, Korea, all these nations from the Far East. Why? Because they're losing their wealth, because we're all, after the earthquake, we're not buying and selling, we're not joining in the market of beasts. So they're losing money. They're crying and lamenting over us. And there's plenty of scripture on that. So they're losing. So they want to come back. The Luciferians promises them the wealth of Africa as they had before. Kill all of them, destroy all of them, and they can have all of the wealth of so-called Africa. So that's why they all join in. And we know how that's going to turn out. Yahweh is going to destroy them with a great slaughter. So when he does that, he's destroying. So they already destroyed the Christian sects and the Catholic sects, but now Yahweh is going to destroy the Islamic sects, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, Shintoism. All of those isms, they will be destroyed. So when the dust settles, what do you have left? You have those men who accepted the mark of the beast and cannot die. You have Israel and Yehuda. And then there is another group. There is another group. But remember that the voice from Hashemayim stopped the Malachim from telling the final secret of all of this. He was getting ready to tell them, but the voice stopped them. So really, we cannot know every last little detail. The voice from heaven stopped them. The voice of seven thunders stopped the Malachim from telling the whole secret about all this. But that will explain everything about what is left. So now you got a backdrop. Next week we're going to talk about the seven bowls, and then eventually we're going to have to go into Daniel 8, okay? Because to show you how it parallels with Daniel 7. Until then, I thank you for joining me. Sorry I have a little bit of a cold, and I'm trying my best here. But until then, next week, Yahonatan Week with you here, Yahweh for Christians at gmail.com. Shalom, shalom. Like it.